Yeah.
And then I think he has a bottle on the table. He's like, oh,
Mike, are you doing okay? Good. You gonna be able to come tomorrow night? We're doing Limestone Branch tomorrow. Joe, y'all are coming, aren't you? You're not gonna make tomorrow?
Try some of this. It looks awfully good.
Yeah, me too. Too much of a good thing. I got it.
Not the right way to do it, but I'm doing it that way.
You got to toughen up.
Come on, baby. Come on, get in. There we go. I'll do it the right way now. These are not.
Ooh, that's good. She's not coming tomorrow. He's in Texas. No, Beam's coming. He's got a great lineup, too. Fuck you, Kay. Let's go. We'll go 7. So, here.
Whoa.
So this.
I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get up.
That was your daughter who put him there, not me.
They're kind of
all right, you all ready to start? Well, first of all, so I'll kick it off. Let's welcome everybody. So excited to be here at Pappy and Company. Louise Van Winkle Breen, the proprietor with her triplet sisters, one of the 3, right? So thank you for letting us be here. And Mr. Van Winkle, thanks for coming as well. This has been in the works a long time. So I don't know Julian as well as maybe you think I do, but he comes to my house probably 3 years ago, knocks on the door on a Friday night, and it was a hell of a week.
You invited me over. I didn't just show up.
Hey, what's your name? Are you the Amazon delivery driver? No, I'm Mr. Van Winkle. Well, look at that.
I wanted to see, is it Suzanne?
Yes, it is. In fact, I was hoping Suzanne would come.
She's pretty cute.
Yes, she is cute. But Julian shows up at the door, and he comes in. We meet for the first time, and it'd been a hell of a week for me. And I go into the kitchen, and I'm like, would you like something to drink? He goes, yeah, I just think I'll have a water right now. I said, well, if you don't mind, I'm going to get a bourbon. He goes, well, what are you drinking? It was a Weller 107. Do you remember that? He goes, forget about the water. So we grabbed and went out on the deck and had a great time, didn't we?
It was fun.
But we greatly appreciate you letting us do this with you and Louise, you and the family, and so letting us come here. So this is the Big Bourbon Club. This is our bourbon club, 6,000 members. These are some of the top premium members of the club. Many of them have come in from far away. I know we've got 2 from Florida that flew in. We got Columbus that just drove in today. Chicago canceled yesterday, but we have friends and family members of the club that have come in from all over. So we're glad you're here. This is a small event for big, right? You're used to the big events with 100 people. This is a small event. So number one, be respectful of how loud you might be as we're talking, but it's going to be a very easygoing conversation. Julian's excited to tell you the story of his grandfather, Pappy. You've heard of him, right? And we're going to have a great tasting with Pappy 23. Thank you for making that happen. We appreciate it. After the event's over, first of all, the event's going to be a lot of give and take. So don't be rude, but certainly ask Julian questions, and it'll just be give and take. It's not formal. It's fun, right? It's a great story. We all want to hear it. After the event's officially over, thank you to David Dumeyer at Kroger Wine and Spirits, who allowed us to get a full flight of the Weller. And so, wow. Woo! No one even gave Mr. Van Winkle applause. How about that?
Dave, I guess you lost my number somewhere.
But I called David, and he said absolutely, and it was that easy, so thank you for that very much. So everybody has 2 red tickets, and thanks to Kroger Wine and Spirits for allowing that, and you can choose any 2 of the 6. We can't give you more than 4 ounces tonight total, so pick the 2 that you've never had and you'd like to try, okay? Any questions? Bill Reynolds, wave your hand in the back. We're streaming back here. We're streaming to our members across the world. We have members in 14 countries, all 50 states, so watch that camera. Dr. Tinlin, when you start to slide back and forth. We're streaming on TikTok right here and Facebook. So we'll take virtual questions as they come in. I'll be on my phone from time to time looking for virtual questions. I'm not looking at my own personal Facebook page. So I just wanted you to know that. But with no further ado, let me introduce Louise Van Winkle Breen, who Pappy and Company, her company, is the sponsor for tonight's event. She opened up the store on a day that they're closed. She's been working on this hard for a couple of weeks with me, so thank you for that. She made literally the cheese tort herself. She literally made the old fashions that she served you when you walked in. So this is very personal to her. And so, Louise, thanks. Thank you so much for doing this. And so, Louise.
And this is our home now. So we're looking forward to doing some fun, innovative things here in the future. So more to come on that. But yeah, we at this point carry everything from cigars, which is the big part of our business, to barware, barrel-aged food items that you're welcome to sample, bourbon balls, bourbon barrel-aged nib riddles, caramels, and my favorite, the barrel-aged maple syrup, which is just out of this world delicious, and our barrel-aged cocktail mix that you guys are drinking tonight, our old fashions. And then beyond that, we have some home goods and apparel. So kind of a little bit of everything. And everything we create and sell has some sort of meaning or story behind it. We're not just looking to slap our name on something and sell it. It's got to be something that's a tradition for us, or working with a like-minded vendor that shares our same values. So it's really been a real cool, unique way to kind of grow the family business.
So raise your hand if you've ever shopped at Pappy and Company before. Be honest. Raise your hand if you haven't. Big opportunity. Big opportunity. Winky, they take credit cards? Any credit card but Target. So let me just real quick. Winky Hollenbach Dawkins is a dear friend from back in high school. And so glad you're here. And thanks for coming in and helping us tonight. We appreciate it. You all know the Hollenbach family from Louisville, but she's the best of them all.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, that's it. And thanks for being here. And we're just looking forward to continue to grow this little business of ours and honor the past and celebrate what's to come.
And I've invited Louise to be a sponsor of the Big Bourbon Club and a partner with us at no cost, but just the partnership. And so you'll see and hear more of her and this company. So tell your friends about it. Tell your compatriots who travel to Louisville about it. Don't just stop at Justin's House of Bourbon. Keep coming on down Market Street. They're doing great stuff here, and they're going to do bigger stuff later. Just stay tuned. Okay, before you introduce your father, just real quick, we do have food in the back. Help yourself. Eat all those sandwiches or they'll go to waste, the cheese tort. And I'm going to kick it off with one question for Julian, and then he's going to, no script, just tell you the story. But Louise, why don't you introduce your father?
Oh gosh, okay. Well, I think y'all pretty much know who the man is. He's my father, Julian P. Van Winkle III. And yeah, there's not much else to really introduce him because I think you do know him. But what I will say is that, you know, in our world, quality is really big, hard work is really big, and he taught me both of those things my whole childhood, not really knowing that he was teaching me those things. It just kind of happened. And when I think back, like everything I know around hard work and doing the right thing and quality over quantity because of Dad and his past and what Pappy taught him. So it's an honor to be his daughter, and I'm glad you guys get to be part of this night and hear his story. It's pretty cool. And I hope he'll tell you a lot about his time through the 80s and the 90s, because that's when the Pappy brand really came to be, or the 90s really. Many people think that Pappy has been around from fourth generation. The Pappy brand didn't exist, so I look forward to you guys hearing that story if you don't know it. Because it's a newer brand, even though we're fourth generation in the bourbon business. I really like to say that we're really second generation in the current. As you'll hear, it all ended at one point. So.
Thank you, Louise. So here's my question to kick it off. What's your favorite expression of the Pappy bottles?
That would be, if I can get it, the 15-year.
The 15-year.
Yep. It's right dead in the middle of the whole spectrum, so to speak. The 10 is fine. The 12 is my second best, but the 15 is, the 20 and the 23 are more the after dinner sipping whiskey, a little oaky, a little more wood, younger whiskeys. I grew up on old whiskey, old wheated bourbon whiskey, old Fitzgerald, very, very old Fitzgerald.
You got a lot in your house,
Sorry.
I bet, didn't you?
Yeah, well, we had I never saw a shortage of that for sure. So I was really spoiled, and but that was my palate. So that's what I learned to enjoy. And the 15 years seems to be got a ton of flavor, a lot of barrel notes, and not as woody over the top as some of the more after dinner sipping whiskeys like the 23, which we'll enjoy later. But that's my favorite. It makes a great cocktail.
So real quick, raise your hand. Is anybody here's favorite the Van Winkle 10? By the way, my wife calls it Chris Crinkle. She doesn't drink whiskey, but she called it Chris. Anybody like the 12? Is that your favorite? 15? 20? 23? Well, I think everybody's like-minded here tonight.
There you go. All right.
All right, Mr. Van Winkle, go ahead.
Preaching to the choir.
Take it away.
So, Pappy Van Winkle, my grandfather, born in Danville, Kentucky, went to Center College. His dad and his uncle were both lawyers. His uncle was Secretary of State. He passed away. His dad was a lawyer, so he stepped in for his brother being Secretary of State in Kentucky also. So Pappy decided that maybe I'm not going to be a lawyer, so I'll just go to Louisville and find a job. Danville's 75, 80-something miles away. Great school, Center College, got a good education, and just knocked on Mr. William LaRue Weller's door as a salesman looking for a job, and he got one. So early years, 1893 is when that was. Pappy was 18, 19 years old. So started as a salesman, horse and buggy, traveling northern Kentucky, Covington area, across the river from Cincinnati. Worked his way up in the business. Mr. Alex Farnsley who's another Louisville fella that Pappy met down here, became a salesman also. So those two were a big part of the business. And the Weller original office was down on Main Street. Then they moved to a larger building, which is now called number 15, which is 121 West Main, which is a beautiful building. We did an event there a couple of weeks ago, to kick off the Weller, and the Van Winkles are part of it because that's where Pappy worked, in that building. And it's got this beautiful kind of a halo-shaped window in the back over Washington Street facing north towards the river, except there's a parking garage right in the way these days. But the building is still pretty much what it looked like back then. So that's where Pappy's first job was, with Mr. Farnsley, and they ran the business. Mr. Weller passed away. His brother George took over the business before Prohibition, and during Prohibition, the Stitzel Distillery, before and after, was making whiskey for the Wellers, so, and a lot of other private labels. So they would put the Weller name over the Stitzel Distillery door. W.L. Weller was being made that day, and the Wellers also were in the wine business, all kind of different gin. You see Weller gin out there, pre-Prohibition gin. This is all before Prohibition, so it was quite a business. But horse and buggy, Pappy was out for weeks, on months on end, and when the Wellers passed away, Pappy and Mr. Stitzel and Mr. Farnsley became owners of the company right after Prohibition. During Prohibition, they made medicinal whiskey, as a lot of the distilleries do. There were only 6 distilleries allowed to make distilled spirits during Prohibition for medicinal purposes.
What did the air quotes mean there, Julie?
Well, if you had a sore fingernail, you got a pint of whiskey every 10 days. Yeah. And you go to the drugstore with your, my wife's uncle was from Lexington. He's a vet, but somehow, well, his family, or my wife's family, on her aunt was in the distribution business, and she's got an old prescription book, and the reasons for the illnesses are hilarious. I mean, malaria, leukemia, broken knees, sore fingernails, sore tooth, pint of whiskey. So it was, it was bullshit, but and Prohibition was, a huge failure, as we all know. All it did was spawn gambling, prostitution, all the illicit
unintended consequences of temperance.
Exactly, and I don't think we'll ever see that again. But you never know these days. So Pappy and Mr. Farnsley and Mr. Stitzel started the Stitzel Distillery Derby Day 1935. Pappy did not go to the races that day, as some people have asked me. Did your granddad go to the races on Derby Day? No, he was opening a distillery in Shively, Kentucky, which was just south of here, because the taxes were less down there. So that's why he opened the distillery in Shively instead of in the city limits of Louisville. Mr. Stitzel passed away, Mr. Farnsley passed away, and Pappy was the Van Winkles were the sole operators of the distillery. Of course, those families were still stockholders. And Fitzgerald, Rebel Yell, eventually Cabin Still, eventually, and W.L. Weller, obviously their big 4 brands. And became very popular. Wheated bourbon whiskey. We're not 100% sure where the wheated recipe came from. We think it maybe was from the Stitzels, who were making whiskey after Prohibition because it had to be aged quicker, because everybody was out of business. Any stock that was made before Prohibition, during Prohibition, was all gone. So some of it was sold as this ancient whiskey made in 1917, bottled in 1935, and that was not the greatest whiskey on earth. There's a lot of it still around.
But their mash bill with wheat, it was not original to them, was it?
We don't think so. I think it was just kind of created because the wheated whiskey, the wheated bourbon recipe aged a little faster, a little more pleasantly than a rye bourbon whiskey. So that's why they came up with wheated. So Pappy stuck with it, and that's what we stuck with all these years, was the wheated recipe. So Pappy run the company. My dad got out of college in 1937, worked for Pappy until 1943 when he joined the Army, and went to the Philippines and did all that, and was wounded, came back from the war in 1945, and continued to work for my granddad at Stitzel Weller. So, and my Uncle King, who had married my dad's sister, Aunt Rip, Mary Chenault McClure, Mary Chenault Van Winkle McClure. We called her Rip until her dying day. Was she 96 when she died? She was stronger than new rope. She was a great lady.
Is that where the name Rip came from?
Well, old Rip Van Winkle. You know, that's obviously Washington Irving.
Yeah,
Irving came
right,
up with that, but
right.
she was known. We called her the Ripper, but she was the Ripper. It sounds. She was just like she sounded. She was.
A
was
term
tough.
of endearment, the
She was
Ripper.
a tough lady, and matter of fact, her granddaughter and Dale Bowden still live in their house out on Orion Road. But so Dad worked for Pappy, and Uncle King worked for him. He's the treasurer, and great family. There were 250 people worked at Stitzelweller back then. My dad knew every one of them. He walked through the bottling house, the shipping, knew everyone. So it was a family operation. And Pappy's sign on the wall is on the front gate, as Louise mentioned. We make fine bourbon, if profit we can, loss if we must, but always fine bourbon. So we focus still to this day, this business, the dry good business, and also the bourbon business, focusing on the quality, not so much making money. Because we have stockholders. You're looking at a couple of them right now, but it's family stockholders, and we don't have a bunch of people worrying about are they making enough money for us. So it's more about quality, which is a lot of distilleries these days have sold out to larger companies, European companies, and you got to make the stockholders happy, and that you want to make more money, and that decreases your quality sometimes. So we don't care about that. We just really want to make quality whiskey. So Pappy passed away in 1965. Dad kept operating the company, and until 1972, when the bourbon business was not great. Light whiskey. Those of you from Louisville and know Brown-Forman, something called Frost 880, which was a light whiskey. It had grain neutral spirits in it and some aged whiskey. It was kind of the colors of iced tea. Vodka, rum, all the lighter whiskeys kind of took over from the bourbon whiskey.
What year was that? You said early 70s?
Yeah. Late 60s, early 1972 is when Dad was forced to sell the distillery. And my aunt, Dad's sister, and her husband were out of the business because they had, Uncle King wasn't working there anymore. So the they were family stockholders, so the business wasn't creating much dividends back then. So that's kind of like the rule is today. We just need to think about somebody to buy this company. So they did, and they were aging whiskey anywhere from 6, 12 to 15 years, which is unthinkable. When you put a barrel of whiskey in a warehouse for that long, you have to have deep pockets to survive that.
Patient money.
The interest and the evaporation and the taxes, the Kentucky, which we still have today, barrel tax on a barrel of whiskey aging in a warehouse. Like you pay property tax on your car and your house, we pay property tax on a barrel of whiskey sitting in a warehouse. Makes no sense to me.
As it dissipates.
Dad sold it, kept the old Rip Van Winkle label, which he bought from Charlie Farnsley, who's an old Louisville mayor here. His family ended up with it back in the 50s, and Dad bought it, never used it. So that's what he used to create his new business after 1972 of buying whiskey he had made at Stitzelweller to put in his old Rip Van Winkle bottles, whether they be UK decanters or coal miner decanters or whatever, which was Stitzelweller whiskey. So it was, if you find those bottles today, as you know, they're worth a fortune. It's nuts. And he did that. Stitzelweller bottled for him. When he passed away in 1981, I took over the business after I just joined him in 1977. So I worked with him for just 4 years. So I was handed this business, and I'm going, I have no idea how to do this, but thanks very much for the business. So I just kind of ran it by the seat of my pants, and kind of still have for lately, as we're kind of learning how to really run this business with some professionals. But it was basically sold itself because the whiskey was so good. I knew the product was good. So I bought a little bottling place in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, and that's what that book Pappyland is about, that Wright Thompson wrote about. The struggles I had down there as far as buying barrels of whiskey, financing, trying to find money to buy whiskey for all these private labels that I was doing, from anywhere to Blue Smoke, or in New York City, or barbecue restaurant, or just all these, anybody that would come into my door, I would say, yes, I'd be glad to find you some whiskey and bottle it under your label. So it worked from 1983 until 2002 when Buffalo Trace knocked on my door. My son Preston joined me in 2001 after I got him the day after he graduated from UK.
Preston, your son.
Yes. He was the second employee of our company. So we doubled the size of our payroll, which is
overnight.
Yeah, exactly. There's just two of us officially that run the old Rip Van Winkle distillery, but to double the size of the payroll hurt, because I wasn't really paying myself except around Christmas, because I needed the money to keep the place open. So selling the whiskey was profitable. That was my sales company, but this bottling plant in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky was a money pit, and it was thankfully, I never paid taxes for years and years, because it was sub S and I was losing money. That was the only good part about it. But we would like to make some money someday. So anything, the whiskey side, making money, we would suck it all dry from the bottling company. But we survived, and we got some good press with the 20-year-old getting the 99 rating from Beverage Testing Institute, and it was a good product and got a lot of good ratings, and did the Whiskey Fest and got people. My main thing was get this whiskey down people's throats, because it was good whiskey. Get them to try it. And all these the Whiskey Fest we went to in New York, Chicago, and San Francisco, people would come up to our table and say, well, I don't like bourbon. I drank it in college. I said, well, just try this. It could be a little different. And they open their eyes, would get really wide. Well, wow, that's different. So this year after year after year, we saw this. So we got something good here. So it finally caught on. People say, where did the popularity of your brand come from? Well, the good rating from Beverage Testing Institute in Chicago in 1997 sure helped. And then chefs got onto it. It would end up in movies. John Grisham would write about it. Anthony Bourdain talked about it like it was a religious experience, drinking the whiskey. That sure didn't hurt. Showing up in Justified and all these great, TV shows. It was just kind of a gradual progression. Articles in Forbes magazine, Fortune, Garden and Gun, and it wasn't any lightning strike moment that made the whiskey really that famous. It was just kind of a gradual, kind of an in-house organic thing that happened. And,
so ballpark, how many barrels did you have back then?
I would just buy whiskey as I needed it.
Oh, so you didn't have a big stack?
Before I hooked up with Buffalo Trace, there was enough bourbon whiskey available by barrel to buy it as you needed, which was a real luxury. But then, as towards the late 90s, it got harder to find, the whiskey that I wanted, especially the older stuff.
The aged, yeah.
And the 20-year label. And I found this picture of Pappy in my basement. I wanted to make this was 1994, 95. I was going to honor Pappy with this 20-year-old label. And I had some excess whiskey. It was 20 years old, because I didn't sell it at 15. It was still sitting around. So luckily I had that. And that's why the Pappy 20-year-old became a 20-year-old label, because it was actually excess whiskey. But once that took off, then the supply started to be hard to get. And initially, when Buffalo Trace, Sazerac, Mark Brown knocked on my door and said, you want to become partners and do a joint venture, I said, I'm good. I like working by myself, because that's the way I'd always been, except for the 4 years I worked for my father. So basically, it was doing this by myself with Preston eventually. But then I started to think that, I think for the future, I'm not putting down any whiskey, which is what you need for the future, which I was lucky enough to be able to buy whiskey as I needed. So I had to slap myself and say, this isn't going to happen forever. I need to put down whiskey.
What do you think Mark saw in you at that time where he wanted to join your forces and bring you into Buffalo Trace?
I think just the popularity of our brand, and also Van Winkle being associated with Weller, because they bought Weller in 1999 from Diageo. The 4 labels that we sold to Norton Simon back in 1972, the British don't know how to sell bourbon. With not any Brits here, are they? Sorry if there are. You don't know how to sell bourbon.
A couple generations deep,
Yeah.
maybe.
Canadians, maybe, or whatever. It's hard to sell bourbon. It's a Southern thing. It's in here. You got to know. It's really tough to understand how to sell Southern bourbon whiskey because it was more of a Southern thing back then. It still is, but they just didn't get it. So they sold Old Fitzgerald to Heaven Hill. They sold Cabot Still to Heaven Hill. They sold Rebel Yell to Don Lux in St. Louis. And Buffalo Trace, or Sazerac, bought Weller in 1999. So it'd be nice to partner Van Winkle with the Weller again.
Makes sense.
Same recipe. He can help promote Weller. I did my job a little bit too well. I should have kept my mouth shut. That way I could find it today. But I think that's why they. So I finally came around and said, yeah, this would be a good deal because they're very wealthy, as you all know, and they can afford to put whiskey away for 23 years and not go broke.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of 23, if we wanted to try some of that. Yes. Oh, yeah. Open for questions.
What's the relationship between Pappy Van Winkle and Old Commonwealth? Is one of the questions.
Yep.
The second one is, who did you pair up with to go to the first San Francisco Wine Festival where you're giving out the Pappies?
San Francisco Wine Festival.
When you went out to California, you paired up with another group, another bourbon that you went out there with and handed out.
I'll get back to you on that.
Don't worry about that.
Old Commonwealth connection.
I'm curious about who. Anyway, my dad came up with the Old Commonwealth label when he sold Stitzel Weller. Wanted an Old Rip Van Winkle label, which he already owned. He also started this Old Commonwealth label, and that was just for decanters, like the UK decanters, and then the coal miners and the waterfowlers and all these decanters. He just wanted another label. But I called the old Hoffman distillery that I bought in Lawrenceburg Commonwealth Distillery, just to give it a name. So most of our decanters, 90% of them were Old Commonwealth, whether it be all these St. Patrick's Day decanters and coal miners and waterfowlers and duck hunters and all these school bottles we did were Old Commonwealth. And the fellow that still owns it today, or bought it a few years ago, is I let the Old Commonwealth label go because I didn't need it, so it's still called Old Commonwealth today. But that's where the name came from.
So it truly is that. It truly
Yeah.
is your juice.
Yeah, the whiskey's all not now. I don't know what they're using, but back in the day, it was we used Old Fitzgerald, Stitzel Weller, same thing. Yellowstone. Dad was good friends with Buddy Thompson, which was really good whiskey. Everybody kind of gave the Yellowstone a bad rap back in the day. Old Boone was the first Pappy 20-year-old was actually Old Boone, which was a distillery south of Chavley, which
Old
really had
Boone.
good. Yep.
I've never heard of that.
Meadowlawn to Kentucky. Yeah, that was
Really?
Old Boone Distillery. Torn down distillery in the late 60s,
That's
early
your
70s.
20-year-old to start.
This first whiskey I put in that bottle. Yeah. But I got hooked up with a lot of wine people going to the San Francisco beverage the whiskey fest out there.
I heard that you rode like with this other brand that's not, I don't remember the brand name, that's where you started distributing the patent.
Well, Cordy Brothers, which is Sacramento, Daryl Cordy, who's still around, a guy named Gordon Hugh up in Covington who owned Cork and Bottle, the liquor store up there that's still there. The Hugh family doesn't own it anymore, but he introduced me to Daryl Cordy, who owned this Cordy Brothers in Sacramento. They're in the wine business. Is a grocery, wine, food, high-end kind of a place. He actually gave me his design to use for my original 12-year-old label, just that basic white label that had Van Winkle Special Reserve on it, the proof, the age, and where it was bottled, and that was it. You talk about no marketing. That label just sold itself because the whiskey was good. You can't sell a bottle of whiskey with a white label and some mandatory stuff on there unless it's good. So that was like, this stuff is good. I think this might take off someday, right?
Speaking of no marketing, why B?
Well, what?
Why the B for the 12 year?
The B? Lot B? I ran on lot A. I mean, I'm not being funny. Gordon Hugh had this idea, and maybe Daryl Cordy did. Let's make the first lot A. So we bottled one bottling, and I've got a lot of records of all these old bottlings in Lawrenceburg. But once we bottled all the lot A, we did a new label called Lot B and never changed it. So that's no, it's.
I said no marketing.
Oh, okay.
It's anti-marketing.
Anti-marketing.
All right, so let's do this. One more question, and I thought I heard Julian say, speaking of 23, I don't know what the next sentence was.
I'm going to take it home with me.
All right, last question before we speak of 23.
Oh, boy.
I want to know, when you talk about the product and you talk about making a good quality product, how much tasting are you doing every day? How is it that you determine that it's going to meet your standard? What particular mash bill? Is there something just about the charring?
Right.
What is it for you?
It's not that complicated. We only have access to, well, back in the day at Stitzel-Weller, obviously we're biased. They made, and a lot of people are also biased because I think that's why that stuff, if you find it, is so expensive. It was a really good mash bill, a really good product, Stitzel-Weller's whiskey. It kills me that we can't recreate that. But Buffalo Trace has come as close, I think, as you can get right now to recreating that flavor profile, which is a wheated bourbon whiskey. It's different equipment, different yeast, different water, different milling methods. Everything's different, but it's damn good whiskey. So when we taste the barrels, people say, why is your 12-year-old Van Winkle, why is it different than 12-year-old Weller? Coming out of the pipe at Stitzel-Weller, at Buffalo Trace, at the distillery, it's the same whiskey, but aged in different warehousing, but we taste every barrel before we bottle it. Weller is big enough, the 12-year-old, so that they dump everything. They do not taste every barrel. So you may have some funky barrels in there, some that alter the flavor. Sometimes the Weller 12-year-old is better than the Van Winkle 12-year-old. But they're really damn close. So when we taste every barrel before we bottle it, what I'm looking for is it's not what we're looking for, it's what we're not looking for. It's something that's off. So recently, because of the barrel manufacturing, and back in the day when it first started with Buffalo Trace, the barrels were all over the map. You'd get these great barrels that were just sweet and smooth. Some of them were just rich, really just had a lot of bite to them, harsh. Some were just foul. And that's because of the barrel manufacturing and also the warehousing they were using back then. Right now, I could taste 100 different barrels, and probably 98 of them are exactly the same to me. Now, those people that work in that lab, they taste a whole lot more difference in these barrels than I do because they do it every day. I'm just looking for stuff that I like and looking for flavor profiles that we do not like. So that's
Are you doing the down to 20, diluting down to 20?
everything. Well, everything's diluted to about 40 proof when we taste them because we're tasting 50 to 100 barrels a day or within a couple of hours. So it's diluted. And because you get your palate burned out. So it's you get a barrel proof. Barrel proof's going to be anywhere from 100 to 135 proof. So they'll reduce it down to about 40 proof, and you get a pretty good idea. You can tell by nosing it and tasting it, and obviously we're spitting this whiskey out. But it's what we're looking. It's what we want to throw out versus what we're really.
Jack, if we go to my deck tomorrow night, you want to try 40 or 50 tastings?
I think it'd be called an Uber home then.
You have to.
Well, why don't we do this? Let's finish your sentence. Well, how about a 23? You want to do that?
Yeah.
All right. So, Louise, thank you. Louise has provided everybody with a Glencairn that you get to keep. Now, not only do you get to keep the old Rip Van Winkle Glencairn, we're going to use it for the 23 now. Julian's going to pour it for you, and you'll use this a little bit later for the Weller choices up there, okay? So how should we do this?
Yeah. Those glasses right there.
It's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Just bring all those glasses over here and we'll pour them up.
Yeah. Wait. Are we giving him the system?
Well, I think the issue is with TikTok, which I don't think your microphone.
There's one to go. All right, just I would.
And that one's ready. One more.
All right. Whoop. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so yeah, Winky, you can see
Because we're not sure we
Oh, good. Oh, that's easier.
So that's,
well,
Yeah, yeah.
you might need two.
Yeah.
So you might need
Right.
two, but this one shows, if you go to the period, the black period.
Right under the red. Okay. All right, y'all bring your glasses over and we'll just start firing it off.
These are ready to go. You can already pour these in there.
All right, there you go.
I'm not going to hesitate.
and here's the bottle of water.
You hesitation
If
glasses.
anybody wants a drop of water, I've got one. Well, it opens it up. That's what he does. There's a bottle of water if anybody would like to add a drop.
Yeah, if you want some water, it's right there.
Yeah, let's take that, Dave.
Okay.
Everybody's got this on the table. This is an extra, so I'm just going to keep this here.
All right, thank you.
Served by the man himself.
Good, very good. Man himself.
Do you need a Valium?
I'm good. Legend in his own mind, or somebody's mind.
What if we ran out? What would we do?
We'll just put some Weller in there.
Yeah, there you go.
I gotta give Mr. Kroger an extra pour, maybe extra billionth of an ounce.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Over here.
think we might make it. I don't know. We're gonna keep our fingers crossed here.
Thank you. No, I'm from Sarasota, Florida.
Oh yeah.
Doing all right?
Oh yeah.
Kathy, you ready? Kathy? Ding, ding, ding. You ready?
Don't lose sight of the objective here.
Oh, trust me.
There's a glass right here. There's a glass right here. And it's incredible. Oh, perfect. Okay. All right.
Giants ketchup thing, you know.
Slow ketchup. I don't know. There you go. Sorry, it's plastic. You're special. You get a plastic cup. Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Sir, I'm sorry, do we know you?
No, I haven't been up yet.
I don't trust this guy, but I believe.
I was hoping for a double in there.
There you go.
Thank you, sir. The thing that makes me the most mad, people say, is Pappy, and I get asked this question all the time, is Pappy overrated? I'm like, no, it's straight bourbon, it's overpriced.
Yeah.
Overrated. It's really, really, really good. It's not overrated.
Yeah, we'll toast here in a minute. Yeah, yeah. Let's do a toast. Yeah, it's not my fault.
No. Did you pour you one?
I've got one over there. They're over there, I think, unless somebody took it. I think it's over there. Where'd this come from?
A taste for Sydney.
Yeah.
We don't have any more Glencairns, but
Oh, shoot.
she is 21. That's a fact.
Yeah, that's it. There you
How old
go.
are you? Hold on a second. This is
22.
Before you were born.
That's right.
23 years old.
That's sorry.
Let's go. Cheers. All right. A toast? All right, hold
Yeah.
on one
Here's to Ireland.
All right, we're ready. You ready? All right, let's do it.
Thank you all for coming. This is very special. You all the whiskey nerds, over the top whiskey nerds, which are pretty cool. They keep us in business. And thank you all for coming. This guy right here, I think Steve is. He's got a hell of. It just fell into his lap, I think. And thank God for Suzanne for starting this whole thing. She's the girl. But thank you all for coming. And this is this whiskey. This is kind of special. I have never tried this yet because this is the first bottling of the Buffalo Trace distillation of 23-year-old Pappy. Before that, Stitzelweller originally, then the Bernheim intermediate distillery, and which is not my favorite, but is really good because nobody ever complained about it. But this is fabulous, and thank you all for coming and enjoy it. If it doesn't hurt my feelings if you want to put a drop or two of water in there because it does open it up. Well, it's 20. Yeah, this year. This is the bottle 2023. If you do the math, we actually hooked up with it in 2022, but they actually had some older barrels. 2002, but they had some older barrels that allotted us to make it become 23 this year. So it's all these little codes on the bottles. You really can't go by those, but this is excellent. And I think y'all enjoy it. So cheers. Thank you.
To Winkles and cheers to Big Bourbon Club. Thank you.
Yeah, Big Bourbon Club.
So you all raised your hand earlier. How many of you have never tasted 23? I think a lot of you have not. Here you go. It's a good treat. Little wheeze.
Julian, I want to thank you for on behalf of my wife who works at Ronald McDonald House. They do the Pappy raffle.
Yes, they do well with that. Good.
And that is their number one fundraising mechanism that they do every year, even bigger than the Red Tie Gala, which they just had last week.
Right.
So that's kind of turned into everybody's best way to get Pappy, right?
It is just
these raffles.
exactly. People say, "How can I get it?" Sign up in many lotteries, as many raffles as you can get. Obviously, Kroger is a huge asset to the community because they have very legitimate, easy way to just go in there. I want to just sign up, but I keep forgetting every year to sign up. Damn it! Just missed it again. But that is the best way to get it. Secondary market is awful, but supply and demand created that. But if you have a charity, a Ronald McDonald House or whatever, rooting for Robert, our friend who's have this Morquio syndrome, a little child we know that's going to help out with charities and so forth to help find some research to help him out. But the charities are benefiting from all these secondary market stuff. So I asked
Julian, I said, could we get 223 so we can pour a full ounce? They don't give it to me. I can't get it. It's that difficult. Tell them about Ruth Robert, who the Big Bourbon Club wrote a $1,000 check to thank you all for doing this for us.
Yeah, of course. So Rooting for Robert is a charity that's really near and dear to our hearts. They're the Vice family, very close friends of ours, and there's Robert suffers from a genetic disease called Morquio syndrome, and it's a disease that affects the bones and joints and tissues in his body, and so he'll never grow more than 3.5 feet tall. He's 8 right now. He's like the brightest little light you've ever seen, and so we're working hard to raise money for researchers to kind of cure from Morquio syndrome, and we've already made a lot of progress, and it's just amazing to see that we can actually make a difference in this little guy's life. He's going to be hopefully in a trial coming up soon, help him grow a couple inches, and anyway, so thank you all for supporting Rooting for Robert tonight. It's a very special charity in our family. So please look into it and look into Rooting for Robert. It's very inspirational, and it'll provide a lot of smiles for you because Robert's a special boy. So thanks you.
For you all to help.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Yeah. This is great. Sorry it couldn't be a bigger crowd, but that's all I could get. Look at this, though.
All right.
Everybody get a raffle ticket?
So why don't we sit back now, take your chairs. We'll talk with Julian, question and answer time, and then we got a little bit more time left before we open up the bar, right? With your tickets.
Sounds good.
Is that good? We've got food back here. Don't help yourself.
Yeah, go see what we got over here.
Fill your stomach.
I know about those sandwiches over here.
They look great.
Get out of the way of the sandwiches. You'll get run over. I got to promote my sister's book. I got to promote Pappy. Yeah, I got to promote this one. That's the one that started it all.
Yeah.
I got to talk about that. That's my sister did this in 1999. Trying to get the history of the Stittsweller Distillery before all the people died that were, it was well after we sold it. But she sat down and took 2 or 3 years to get this book done. It was going to be like a family, just a pamphlet, pictures and some notes from some of the people that worked there, and then it ended up 2 years later into a real coffee table book, so it's nice. I mean, look, it's got some great old pictures from the distillery, but it's just, I mean, the place was really well documented. I mean, it's just, just all this, it's just kind of the history of my grandfather and dad and the war and Derby and hunting dogs. And that's my Uncle King. That's Pappy and my father. So it was a cool book. Been around for a long time. But anyway, it's good to have people say, "Tell me about your business." Just hand them that book.
Yeah.
There you go. Or hand them Pappy
I was
Land.
sitting there looking at him like, I wonder why he's not signing this one.
Well, thank you for reminding me. I'm going to mention it.
Yeah, you still?
Yeah.
I think I might.
Well, good. It's a cool book. Very well done. And I'll be glad to sign that too.
Okay, great.
For sure.
About a year ago, I came on a bottle of 20 year from 2008. I believe it's a Stittsweller.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually a liquor barn store pick.
Really?
This truck driver that I know calls me and says, "Would you buy a Pappy Van Winkle?"
thank y'all for your support. It's great. All right, what's next?
Michael, we're going to do a little Q&A.
Oh.
So this is freestyle. It's like a freestyle rap. And,
Hello. Can you still hear me?
so, Julian, thank you for the history of the story. Q&A from the audience. Questions, thoughts?
Okay, thanks for coming.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Let's go. So let me ask you a question. What's your favorite memory of your grandfather? Because you all were close, right? I mean, you knew.
Well, I was only 15 when
you were
he
a little guy, but you
when
knew
he
him
died.
well.
Well, we hung out a little bit together. I wish my cousin Mac or Schnall, my older cousins, were here because they and my sister Sally and Kitty. I've got two sisters. I'm the baby in the family, which is quite obvious. But we'd go hunting together. There are pictures of us hunting, and never played golf with a guy. I couldn't keep up with his dog and his caddy, and pulling his golf clubs. But most of my memories are just hanging around his house over here on Hill Road in the Highlands.
Hill Road, off Eastern Parkway.
Yeah, 37 Hill Road, right off Eastern Parkway.
Leanne, 51 Hill Road.
Yep, Tyler Park, right
That's
behind their
exactly
house. That's a good spot.
Did you hunt out in Wyoming any by chance?
No, when we were hunting, it was like down by River Road. Seriously, I dove hunted in Cox's Park.
For real?
Across the street from Cox's Park. No, you shoot some dog walkers over there. But he was a great guy. I didn't know him personally that much because, again, I was a 14, 15-year-old kid when he passed away, so it's not like we sat down.
Did you call him Pappy?
Yeah.
Was that his name for the grandkids too?
Yeah. Yep. A friend of his, Jack Castleman, gave him that name back in the day.
So everybody called him Pappy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How many cigars a day did he smoke?
Probably 2 or 3 really cheap Anthony and Cleopatra cigars.
Oh.
Like 10 cents a piece, maybe. It was not a Cuban cigar guy back then. Because I remember opening the box of cigars, and I'd take those rings off and put them on my fingers, my knuckles, and go, pop those little cigar things. Yeah.
Anthony and Cleopatra. That's what you put in the dashboard of your truck before we smoke.
Swisher Sweets.
Yeah, that's right.
Woo.
Like, get a damn humidor.
Those are brutal.
What questions y'all have?
So I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
As you look toward the future with Preston and your company over at NAC, what do you see as maybe the biggest challenges or opportunities moving into the future?
Well, it's always a mystery as to where this business is going. I'm terrible at determining the future. I would say 10 years ago, this was done. This book that Wright Thompson wrote about me, I thought when this was, the book came out in 2020. Took 2 or 3 years to write. And when the book idea came up, I said, this whole bourbon thing is going to die. Why do you want to write a book about me? So it's, 8 years later, it's still going crazy. So just kind of, I think if you keep doing what you've done my grandfather was born 150 years ago, come March 22nd. Wow. We're going to try and make some kind of big deal out of it here in another week or so because 150th Derby, Pappy's 150. If he had lived, he didn't, I'm sorry. But
we can do this again if you want with my members.
I know.
We won't be back to that.
Not you, the next group. I'm just joking, Rick.
Oh, no, that was mean.
Rick.
Just keep doing what we've been doing for a long time and make a good product. And I don't think we're going anywhere. Nice people. Yeah. The secret to this business is, like I said, get people to taste your whiskey. I mean, the guy that owns Tito's Vodkas, his name is Tito Beverage. His last name is Beverage. Seriously? We became friends back in the early 90s because we were just starting out. He did a lot better than I did because he's making something you can make today and sell tomorrow. But he said, just get your product, send it to everybody, get them to try it. If it's good, it'll work. And that's what we've been doing. And then the word of mouth thing happens, which is raise your hand if you've ever told anyone about our whiskey, if it was a good thing to try. Well, you created your own competition when you did that. So that's why you can't find it anymore. But that's a good thing for us, bad thing for you all. But the word of mouth is the best advertising on the planet, as you all know. So we're very lucky that we have a good product and have very wealthy partners who can afford to put our whiskey away for 23 years and even longer someday to make a really good product. So it's a lot
Is
of
the
fun.
partnership with you in Buffalo, is that public and how it's split and all of that, or is that not?
Yeah, we still own the brand. They own 49%. We own 51, and
you control the brand.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We do. So that's I had a really good attorney on this deal. So which is we wouldn't have done it any other way. The venture capitalists and all that, where they want 80% of your business, whatever. That's great to stay in business and just keep it going, but we wanted to control this business and do what we have for 100 and something years. It's worked out very well, thanks to nice folks like y'all. We really appreciate it.
Julian, street talk is that with the new stuff coming out, the volumes are going up. More in the market?
Yes.
Is that a lie?
It's like 10% more every year. So that started 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. So it takes forever for it to catch up. So if we have a new idea for a 10-year-old, a new distillation method or whatever, okay, we wait 10 years. Okay, I tried it. It's good. Okay, we'll put it on the market. That's 20 years it takes to perfect one change in a 10-year-old product.
If the volumes are increasing 10% every year, then in 6 years you double the output.
Yes, but the demand keeps rising. Is the problem? Not the problem, but it's keep your damn mouth shut. That Woodford Reserve is awesome stuff. You can get all of it you want. Yes, even the 10-year, which again we had a 3 to 5% increase starting 20-something years ago when we hooked up the Buffalo Trace. Increased it to 10 a few years ago, but it's still going to be a while before that shows up in the marketplace. So again, my granddad always said, make a really good product, but keep it in seemingly short supply. We're not keeping it in seemingly short supply. It is in short supply, but it's not on purpose. But we don't want to make too much, because I've been there where you have too much inventory. And there's some institution called the bank that calls up every 3 months that wants an interest payment. Every 3 months wants an interest payment. But we're making as much as we can, not going crazy with it because we don't want to get stuck. This thing may blow up someday, and I'm like a prohibition baby. I grew up in the prohibition. I don't want too much inventory because I'm going to be starving again, which is what I did from 1983 until 2000 something, because the business wasn't great. So I'm not going to get too crazy with making too much whiskey. But we're making more and more every year, so we do the best we can.
Julian, we've got a question from Facebook from Thomas Reed, a good friend of ours.
Uh-oh.
Thomas is in Nashville, Springfield, Tennessee. He says, how did Van Winkle Family Rye come about since you started with a wheated mash bill?
Well, that's easy because, it's not easy. It is easy. I had never, when I think this, I don't know if this is in the book or not, but Marcy Palatella, who owns Old St. Nick, is that it? Old
St. Nick.
Great Old Nick, St. Nick,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I did her bottling back in the early 90s through the 90s. All her whiskey was sold in Japan. She had great customers over there. So she said, my customers in Japan want you to source from old rye whiskey. I didn't know what rye whiskey was, to be honest with you, other than the yellow Jim Beam label on the bottom shelf and the old Overholt down there collecting dust. So contacted, I guess, somebody maybe at Diageo, maybe through Charles Medley, because Diageo had bought Charles Medley's old distillery in Owensboro. And I said, send me some barrels of your rye whiskey. And I wasn't even sure what rye whiskey was. You know, I heard of Canadian rye whiskey. Rye whiskey, obviously more rye than corn in the recipe. So his recipe was 51% corn, 18%, 51% rye, 18% corn, and then 11% malted barley, and which determined what rye whiskey was, more rye than anything else in the recipe, just like bourbon would be mostly corn. And I tasted it, and I went, Sissy, my wife, try this. She's got the best palate in the family. She said, well, this is fantastic. What is this stuff? So it's rye whiskey from Owensboro, Kentucky. Charles Medley made it. He was a great old guy, and family was in the business. They shut the distillery down in 1992. And their yeast recipe was pretty damn close to Stitzel-Weller's. And it was very similar. So their whiskey was very good. So I sent her some samples and started selling rye whiskey in Japan originally. And then Gary Reagan and Paul Picoult, I met them at the Bourbon Festival one year, and they said, you're selling rye whiskey in Japan? Being from New England, or up east, as we call it down here in Kentucky, they said, well, you got to sell rye whiskey, around the country. I said, okay. So we bought a bunch of barrels, and it took off. But I didn't really know what it was, too much about it. But when I tasted it, it's still some of the best whiskey I've ever had. That's straight Medley, 100% Medley rye whiskey. Eventually, we ran out of that. We had to mix it with some Bernheim, Kentucky rye whiskey. But again, one of the most popular whiskeys we've ever had. Now Buffalo Trace is making it to their recipe. It's just 13 years old, so it's not quite as fine as that was. But that's kind of where that came from.
So Julian, tell us about. I think we all have feelings about the secondary, and most of us don't like it at all. What are your thoughts on the secondary market that have taken the prices of Pappy and others and exploded?
Econ 101, supply and demand.
Supply and demand.
It's going to happen. At first, obviously, we're all very angry about it, but we look at the good side of it, where the charities are killing it, because people that will spend thousands of dollars on a bottle of whiskey, if it's a collectible, that's one thing. But to spend $2,000 or $3,000 or $10,000 on a bottle of our whiskey at a liquor store or from some guy on the secondary market, come on, it's not worth that much.
It's not good.
There's no way.
Yeah.
There's nothing worth that much, I don't think. So it's really great for charities, and it's the only it's the silver lining in this whole thing is the charities, like Root for Robert and all these charities that you all know. You donate whiskey, whether it be the Cancer Foundation or the Ronald McDonald House or whatever, they're really reaping the benefits, which is fabulous.
So back in, when did you start the brand? 92?
Which one?
Well, the Pappy lineup.
Well, Pappy started in 94.
94.
I bottled the first bottle of 20 year in 1994.
And you struggled for a while, right? How many years?
Struggled from 1983 until 2002. When
it wasn't easy forever, right?
No, it was.
And now you have the greatest brand on the planet within whiskey, and maybe in the category you think of. I mean, it just jumps up above all. What do you think about that?
It blows my mind.
Does it blow your mind?
Yeah, it's not in my realm of thinking that's. I love wine. I'm actually more excited about wine than I am bourbon or whiskey, because it's interesting and I love it. So we got to know a lot.
Hold on, my wife's calling.
Oh, see you making cookies?
Hey, hey, Suzanne, I'm with Mr. Van Winkle. We'll be right back. It wasn't her, it was somebody else.
No, it's give me in Pappy Land. There's a little talk about collaboration, with some people that helped you along, type thing. And I think
there's a lot of those.
One of them. And what is the spirit of that in the industry, and how did you benefit from some of that?
Jimmy Russell.
I believe it was Jimmy Russell that helped you out.
Well,
right?
Yes. When I had my place in Lawrenceburg, which when my dad sold Stitzel-Weller, he died in 1981. So from 72 to 81, Stitzelweller did our bottling. And when he passed away, they told me to take a hike because they were just doing it for a favor for him. So I had to look for another place to bottle, which was down in Lawrenceburg. The Wertheimer family owned the place, the old Hoffman Distillery. So they were able to operate it for another few years, and I bought it in 83 from them. So what came with Commonwealth Distillery, the old Hoffman Distillery, was Darlene Gillis, who was the bookkeeper there and did all the figures for all the bottling and all that stuff. So she knew Jimmy Russell like the back of her hand. So whenever something would break down, she'd get on the phone and say, Jimmy, can you send a mechanic over here? This bottle line isn't worth it. It's all clogged up and it won't work at all. And Julian's going crazy. He's pulling his hair out and he doesn't have any hair and he's getting less hair. And so he was a great friend. So it was, and that's the production side of bourbon business. The marketing side is not that way. It's a little more fisticuffs, competitive. But any manufacturing, any y'all in the manufacturing business, you know, if you have people in the same business you are, that business is they're willing to help you out. And he would send somebody over to, and so he bailed me out several times. It was really cool. And he was the closest one. Otherwise, we'd have called Jim Rutledge up at Four Roses, and she knew him too. So, and she's still around and a wealth of knowledge and all this stuff. And if anybody needs any more Hoffman, any old Hoffman decanter, she's got a whole garage full of them.
Jim Rutledge?
No, Darlene Gillis.
Oh,
I know. Yep.
So why don't we do this? We have time for one more question. We need to close up at 9 o'clock and get out. We got to be out at 9. You have time for one more quick drink. So hold on, Mark. Anybody else who have not asked a question yet? Mark Highball, go. Last question.
Surely this is going to be unpopular, but.
All right, anybody else have a question before we go to the bar?
Next question.
With some distillers over the past couple of years have increased the prices of their bottles significantly because of the secondary market.
Mm-hmm.
How come you all have not?
The secondary market has nothing to do with the price of your whiskey.
Why have you not increased the value, the price of your regular price of whiskey like some other distillers have?
The secondary market has nothing to do with how we.
Could you speak into the microphone?
Pull your hearing aid out. It really,
I think you said it.
It really doesn't. It has nothing to do with the we. If you look at the Scotch market, the Macallan market, which is crazy, also, you know, you get the Scotch market has always been the retail price is always 10 or 20-year-old bottle of single malt Scotch is going to be way higher than a bourbon, Kentucky bourbon whiskey. It always has been. We don't necessarily look at that and guide our prices according to that, but bourbon is a good deal unless you're selling a 4-year-old bourbon whiskey for $80.
In the past 2 years, some of the bourbon distillers are double prices.
I ain't doing that.
So this is part B of the last question. Part
I got to
B.
sleep at night.
All right, hold on. We'll do one more quick one. Get your little red ticket out. You get one more, and then we got to get out by 9. Anybody else? Julian, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you all. It was fun.
Louise, you want to give
Yeah.
Louise, would you give a final word as our hostess and sponsor of the event? Thank you for letting us come in and bringing your father. And it's not too late to go shop, buy something, and then Julian be happy to sign it. Thank you all.
I forgot my sister, Sally, the oldest Van Winkle child in our family, wrote this book in 1999. It's the history of Pappy and this from start to finish, and it talks about my little business, and I forgot to mention, but this is a great story about our family and Stitzelweller. Tons of pictures. Lynn Caulfield, who was a photographer here in Louisville for years, documented our distillery. So take a look at these too. It's a great book and another option.
Thank you. So
thank y'all for coming.
Final word. Julian doesn't do this a lot anymore, and we really, really, really appreciate you.
It only took me 3 or 4 years to get
So
here.
we'll work on 2030 soon.
There you go.
Thank you.
Well, Louise.
But basically, there were 5 keys that hung on Pappy's office door at Single Distillery, and they symbolized the keys to hospitality, as well as the 5 steps in the bourbon making process.
There's a key right there.
So when we, the sisters and I didn't think I mentioned this, but I own this business with my 2 identical triplets. But anyway, so this Winkle key.
Is Preston not on there?
Well, he doesn't own this business.
He's.
The way it works, guys, he was handed a job out of college. The girls were separated.
That's right. Julian, thank you.
Oh, God. Thanks, bud. That was fun. No, it was great.
Thank you.
Good crowd, too.
Appreciate it more than you know it.
My pleasure. That was great. Thank you all. Y'all are great.
You all are welcome to shop. We still have